Hello everyone, I'm Dragons After Dark, and today we will be taking a look at my strategies for Family Battler on the Dragon Isles against Bakhushek. Bakhushek can be found in what I'm calling the Centaur capital Maruukai, something like that. So she can be found down here, just down the hill from the flight path. She can kind of see it directly, so the flight path is up here and she's right here. So I don't have any of my fancy add-ons to make everything look super nice on the screen, so we're just gonna have to roll with what we've got. So I'll just be bringing the pet journal up instead of having it up on the screen in a box for you to see. We are going to start with the Humanoid Team, and you will need the Globe Yeti, the Rotten Little Helper, and then you will need a level 25 humanoid in slot 3. Anything, it doesn't matter, you're not going to use the third pet. And keep in mind, for this achievement set, all of your pets need to be level 25. It's not like some of the previous family achievements where you could have pets that are any level on your team. They do need to all be level 25. So let's go ahead and get started. The reason I chose the Globe Yeti in particular is I wasn't going to have to worry about breed restricting anything because it only has one breed, and some of the other pets with Gift of Winter's Veil have varying breeds that could change how the strategy would need to be written out. So I picked the one that has a single breed. You can grab one of those if you like, so I think the only other ones that's like this one is the Grumpling. It does have Gift of Winter's Veil and Snowball. I'm not sure how all of these other ones would play out. The Father Winter's Helper and the Winter's Little Helper have less power, so you just need to kind of watch how much damage you're doing. I haven't really tested it thoroughly, so I just went with the Globe Yeti because I know that it works just fine. But we will start with the Gift of Winter's Veil. And what we're gonna do here is, if your Gift of Winter's Veil crits, then you are just going to go ahead and swap over to the Rotten Little Helper. If it does not crit, you will need to use Snowball. And once that happens, you will swap over to your Rotten Little Helper. And then we are going to put down our booby-trapped presence to set up for when Fantis comes in. And then we are going to club to finish off Scritches. Fantis will come in, eat the booby-trapped presence, and then Grinch's gift does just enough damage that they will finish up Fantis. And that is it for the Humanoid Team for Bakhushek. Next up, we have our Dragonkin Team. So for this one, I have the Nether Fairy Dragon, the Stormborn Whelpling, and then any Dragonkin for slot number 3. The breed on the Nether Fairy Dragon shouldn't matter. I grabbed the SS because it has the least amount of power, so that let me know that anything with more power will also be able to finish the first pet in 3 hits, as long as your pets are 25 and rare, which they should be. Then you will be able to finish the first pet in 3 hits with any of the breeds. Slot number 2 doesn't have to be the Stormborn. I'm sure anything that has Call Lightning will be totally okay in slot 2, because after Call Lightning you're probably going to be able to finish Fantas off with any of your attacks. But let's go ahead and get started so you can take a look and see what I mean. First thing we're going to do is we are going to Moonfire, because Scritches is, unfortunately for them, a flyer. And then we are going to hit them with Arcane Blast. And as you can see here, if you're worried about, well, maybe my Nether Fairy Dragon won't be fast enough, Scritches has a really low speed stat once you get rid of their flying buff. So any of the Nether Fairy Dragons are going to be faster once you get rid of that flying buff. So definitely don't need to worry about that there. And then now we have our Dragonkin buff, and we are going to Arcane Blast. And as you can see, this one has the lowest power out of all the Nether Fairy Dragons, and it finished Scritches off in 3 hits. Now we're going to Life Exchange on Fantas, just to take a nice little chunk out of their health. Then we are going to swap over to probably, like I said, anything with Call Lightning. And you can see why I said you might not survive. Well, he crit. As I said before, you might not survive to do a second hit with your Stormborn or any of your Call Lightning pets. That might not happen. So you'll just need to bring in your 3rd pet to do a couple of hits on Fantas, and you should be totally fine. And if nothing else, you don't even need to worry about slot 3. You can probably bring in the Nether Fairy Dragon and Moonfire and Arcane Blast, and it's really your choice. These 2 pets should be more than enough to finish Fantas if your Lightning pet doesn't in slot number 2. But that's going to be it for the Dragonkin family battler. Next up, we have our Flying Team, and you're going to notice a theme with a lot of these. If I could get my hands on something with Call Lightning, that's pretty much what I put in slot 2 and 3. Today we've got the Sentinel's Companion, and these moths don't matter. The only thing that matters about these 2 moths here is that they have Call Lightning. So any moth with Call Lightning that is level 25, probably, I don't know, I would prefer to say rare, but that might not even be necessary. I do always recommend that you go into these family battler fights with rare pets. Let's go ahead and get started. Again, we are going to open with Moonfire. And then we're not going to Soul Rush here. We're going to Dark Talon twice, because it will be enough to finish Scritches off. Because kind of what I wanted to do here is I'm just going to use Soul Rush on Fantas, because if you get a stun, it'll be nice to get that, basically a free swap in on one of your mods. It's totally okay if you don't get that free swap in, you're going to be fine either way. Because if Fantas attacks you with Smash, it does weak damage against flyers, not a big deal. And then of course Stampede is not doing a whole lot of damage as it begins and progresses, and even if you get hit with this with Shattered Defenses, you're gonna be fine. It's just nice to have that free swap in if they're stunned. Then we're gonna Call Lightning. And now we will swap to our second moth. And we are going to call lightning again. And you can kind of see why I said that your pets probably, like your mobs, probably don't even need to be rare for slot 2 and 3, because you're gonna see a lot of damage for call lightning against a beast pet. But again, disclaimer, I do always recommend that you have your pets at rare quality when you're doing these family battles. Next up, we have our Undead Team, and this one we will be using all 3 pets here. So we've got the Cursed Vermin in slot number 1, we have Iron Grasp in slot number 2, and then we have a Blight Breath to come in and clean up Fantis for slot number 3. I chose the Cursed Vermin because anytime a pet has a multi-hit ability like Stampede or Hunting Party, I really like using abilities like Spirit Spikes so that they damage themselves. They fall upon their own swords, so to speak. And then what's nice about the Cursed Vermin is if you're going against a flyer who is doing a multi-hit attack, you can pair it with Prowl, and because you are not using an attack specifically to eat up Prowl, they are hurting themselves. So it says increases the damage of your next attack, not their attack. It buffs all the hits that Spirit Spikes does against your enemy. So I really, really love using this combination right here against flyers or anything that does multi-hit attacks. Even if you're not looking at something like a flyer, it's still a really nice combination to use. And you're gonna see we're going to Metal Fist until we die because Fantis has Stampede, which does strong attacks against undead. So we'll just Metal Fist until we're dead, and then we will get Black Claw on, and then we'll clean up with Toxic Smoke that's going to be buffed by Black Claw, so that should be fine. You should be totally fine using this team, even though Stampede's going to hit horribly against us. So let's go ahead and get started. When you're doing the Spirit Spikes and Prowl combination, what you need to do is you need to start off with Prowl, because Prowl will stay on for 2 rounds, whereas Spirit Spikes is only 1. So you'll Prowl and then you'll Spirit Spikes. And then you will just pass, because as you can see here, Scritches is done in 2 hits, and Spirit Spikes also reduces the amount of damage you're going to be taking, so you should still be alive when Fantis comes in. Now, the thing you have to keep in mind when using that combination of Prowl and Spirit Spikes is you need to make sure that whatever multi-attack you're being hit by is going to do enough damage to overcome the damage reduction of Spirit Spikes. So this works really well against Scritches because they have a damage modifier, Black Claw. That's just something to keep in mind for this combination. But once Fantis comes in, you're gonna pounce, because we want to eat that exposed wounds that Fantis applies, is we want our Iron Grasp to survive as long as possible against Stampede. So we will just Metal Fist until Iron Grasp dies. It should be here, yep. So you get 2 Metal Fists. Sometimes you'll get more, because sometimes Fantis will use Smash. Their ability usage isn't static. So sometimes you'll get more than 2, sometimes you'll only get 2, which is why it's important that we use Black Claw on our Undead round. And then we're gonna bring in our Blight Breath. And we will finish up with Toxic Smoke, and it shouldn't take more than 2 hits. If Fantis used Smash against your Iron Grasp on the swap in, then you should only need 1 Toxic Smoke to finish Fantis off. But as you could see there, worked totally fine. And that's our Undead team. Now we have our Critter team. For this team I have the archetype of Vigilance, the Vicious Leopard, and the Glutted Bleeder. Now for this team, you have to keep in mind that both of the enemies we're facing are dealing out beast damage. That being said, I know the archetype of Vigilance isn't going to be something everyone's going to easily have access to because it is a protoform synthesis pet, and I'm not gonna lie, that was a rather annoying set of final patch pets to try and collect. I bought most of mine. I'm not ashamed to say, because I was not going to spend time getting all of those Genesis motes or trying to get some of the other components that were really weird to get. But the reason I really like having this pet in slot 1 again is because of Spirit Spikes. It is the only critter pet that has Spirit Spikes, but it's really handy here. And then the fact that it's a snail combining with Ooze Touch, which we will need to use here because we don't have any buff damage modifiers like Prowl to take Scritches out in the couple of hits that we saw with the Undead team. So we need that Ooze Touch to finish them off before they can do real damage to our team. There is a note for the pets in slot 2 and 3. So both of these are wild pets. And the big problem with wild pets is they generally come in multiple breeds with a couple of exceptions. What you need to make sure of here is that your leopard has more health than your glutted bleeder. And this is because we are going to use Shell Rush to swap a pet in to make sure that our pets don't get the exposed wounds debuff on us, which could cause issues when it comes to Fantis potentially using, I think it's Smash on us. So that's the only thing you need to make sure of here, is that your Vicious Leopard has more health than your Glutted Bleeder. But let's go ahead and get started, and I will show you the fight. So for this one, it still will only be 2 rounds here. So you'll Spirit Spikes on the first round, and then you will Ooze Touch. And as you can see, Spirit Spikes is doing a great job of modifying, or mitigating that damage that we would see from Hunting Party combined with Black Claw on a critter pet. And then once Fantis comes in, we're going to Shell Rush, which will swap us with our highest health pet, which is why your Vicious Leopard needs to have more health than your Glutted Bleeder. Once your Vicious Leopard is in, we are going to Exposed Wounds. And thankfully Fantis went ahead and used Stampede first, and then you will just Stampede until your Leopard dies. And since he's using Stampede, that means we are going to get we should get all 3 rounds. Okay. You're not going to really need to worry about the breed of your Vicious Leopard because all of them Well, all of them except the health power are going to be faster than Fantas. The health power one's going to be slower than Fantas, but you should still be okay. Like it shouldn't be a huge deal if you don't get that last bit of Stampede done. What we're gonna do here is we're gonna come in with the Glutted Bleeder, and we're going to Powerball. And I did check it out and smash with the Beast damage modifier, because once we get Fantas below 50%, they get 25% extra damage. So even with the Beast damage buff and a crit and a high roll on smash, all of the Glutted Bleeders should have enough health to survive. Like if all three of those things are happening at once, the Glutted Bleeder should be able to survive. But you can kind of see why I said I'm pretty sure that even if you don't get the last hit with the health power Leopard, you should still be fine, because I think we still got a pretty decent hit without a crit. So that was 440. And then we're going to use Burst. Like, I could just use Powerball here again, but sometimes Fantas is going to have more health than that. So you'll Powerball and then you'll Burst. And then if you really need to, the Archetype of Vigilance should be able to survive one smash hit from Fantas, because we didn't take a whole lot of damage from Scritches. So if you need to, you should be totally fine to bring in your Archetype of Vigilance, and an Ooze Touch should be more than enough to finish off whatever health Fantas has left over. Next up, we have our Magic Team. So our Magic Team today is going to be the Spectral Porcupet, the Servant of Demidos, and the Enchanted Broom. Again, I've chosen these ones because Spirit Spikes with the first pet and Lightning Shield with the second pet, combined with a mechanical attack for Fantas. And then we have the Enchanted Broom to come in and clean up whatever we need to clean up. So let's get started. So for this one, what we will do is we're going to Spirit Spikes on round 1. And then we will Powerball twice. And that's just to make sure that Scritches can't... I wanted to use Powerball to make them faster, to make sure that Scritches could not do their second round of Hunting Party, because you definitely don't want the second round of Hunting Party to come up, because your Spirit Spikes has fallen off. They've got the damage modifier of Black Claw, and then you'll have Shattered Defenses, and then even if you survive that and you're slower, you're definitely not going to survive the scratch hit. So I used Powerball there instead of, I think they have Bite for their other slot, just so I could be faster and get that third hit in without taking any more damage. So here what we're going to do is we're going to swap to our Servant of Demidos. We're going to Lightning Shield. And then we are going to Siphon Anima. Which that was a really nice crit. And then we will just Magic Sword until either the Servant of Demidos or Fantas dies. Which in this case it was Fantas. However, that crit was rather substantial, so you can't depend on the Servant of Demidos to finish off Fantas. So what you're going to do is, once the Servant of Demidos dies, you'll bring in your Enchanted Broom. And if Fantas's health is less than 421, you're just going to use Batter. And if Fantas's health is more than 420, then you're just going to use Wind Up. That should be more than enough to finish Fantas off. If not, you'll probably wind up, second wind up hits, and then you'll just need to Batter to clean up. And that's just in case anything really funky happens with the Servant of Demidos and you don't survive, but you should, so you should survive to use Siphon Anima. Okay, now for our elemental team, we have the Ravenous Prideling, the Stormwrath, and then the Tiny Twister in slot number 3, just in case. This choice should be pretty obvious. The Ravenous Prideling has Blast of Hatred and Surge of Power. The Stormwrath has both Lightning Shield to do damage against multi-hit attacks, and Call Lightning, which does strong damage against beasts, and then we'll have just a damage plus a dot that'll do nice little extra damage combined with Call Lightning. And then Tiny Twister, coin flip, some of the times you'll need it, sometimes you won't, but Tiny Twister should just be able to come in and Call Lightning to finish Fantas off. Maybe need a Wild Wind. I haven't ever gotten to the point where I need more than one hit from the Tiny Twister to kill Fantas. But let's go ahead and start the fight. So again, Scritches should die in 2 hits here. We're going to Blast of Hatred. And even though we're not getting the bonus hit from Blast of Hatred, because technically Scritches didn't do any damage to us, so we were not struck this round, we just had Black Claw put on, it still brings us just within the threshold of Surge of Power. So you'll Blast of Hatred, then Surge of Power. And Scritches is dead. And then you will spend the first 2 rounds against Fantas recovering. And you're not likely to survive long enough to do any kind of damage to Fantas, but if you do, you can just kind of do whatever attack you have available. Chances are you're never going to get to that point because you have Black Claw and Exposed Wounds on you, so anything Fantas brings out in their round 2 is probably just going to annihilate you. So for Stormwrath, what we're going to do is we are going to Call Lightning. I messed that up. We're not going to Call Lightning first. We should Lightning Shield first. It should still work out okay. But Lightning Shield, then Call Lightning. My mistake. I was looking at the wrong line for my strategy. Okay, but you see here, we did need the Tiny Twister because I messed up, but that's okay. The Tiny Twister is there as a failsafe, and again, even with my mess up, Fantas is still well within the range for Call Lightning to finish him off. That just goes to show even I make mistakes sometimes, even when I have the strategy written out right in front of me. So don't ever feel bad if you miss a line, because I do it sometimes too, and I wrote these strategies, so. Next up, we have our Beast team, and again, Spirit Spikes. I mean, if it's not broke, don't fix it, right? And then in slot number 2, we have the Thunder Lizard Runt. And this time we'll make sure to use our Lightning Shield appropriately. And then of course the Thunder Lizard Runt has Zap, which is mechanical damage. And then I haven't had to use the Devourling yet at all, but basically your priorities are just going to go down. So you'll use Siphon Anima, Headbutt, Soul Rush. I can't imagine that Fantas, even if something weird happens and your Thunder Lizard Runt just taps out, dies, whatever, I don't think they would survive the combination of all three of these things, but even if they did, you've still got your Vengeful Porcupet to come in and finish Fantas off with Flank. So again, like most of these strategies, because she only has 2 pets, it's easy to build in fail-safes for, like you saw with me, the mistake with the elemental pets. But you should be fine here. Let's go ahead and get started. And just like with the Spectral Porcupet, what we're going to do is we're going to Spirit Spikes, and then we will Powerball twice, or maybe just once. Can't remember with this one. Okay, so it's just going to be 1 Powerball because the Vengeful Porcupet clearly has more power than the Spectral Porcupet. So at this point, you will swap to your Thunder Lizard Runt. This time we will make sure to Lightning Shield first instead of second. And then you will just zap until Fantas or your Lizard Runt dies. Okay, so this time the Thunder Lizard dies. You'll bring in your Devourling, and as you can see, not going to need anything more than Siphon Anima. And that is it for your Beast team. Next up, we have our Aquatic team. Again, we have a pet with Spirit Spikes. And what's nice here is obviously you're not going to start out faster than Scritches, but you will be after your second round. So your third round of Grasp, you'll hit Scritches and they'll be done. And then this one's pretty obvious. You'll just swap over to your Chitterspine Skitterling for Black Claw and Swarm. And then your Spawn of Ganathus is there to clean up anything the Chitterspine Skitterling was not able to with Thunderbolt and Swallow You Whole. So if you have a Hydraling, you can also use them in slot 2. You can probably come in and you can probably do the swap and then Shell Armor and Call Lightning and Tail Slap. I didn't pick the Hydraling just because I wasn't sure how rare of a pet it is. And with the Chitterspine Skitterling here, it's really not a big deal to just have them in slot 2 instead. So once more, we will open with Spirit Spikes. And then we'll hit Grasp. And this time maybe they got a crit or something? Spirit Spikes definitely crit on Scritches, which is why we only needed 1 Grasp. If Spirit Spikes does not crit on Scritches, you will need 2 Grasps to finish them off. Once Fantas is in, we will swap to our Chitterspine Skitterling. And all 3 of the breeds are going to be faster than Fantas, so breed does not matter because they are all speedier. And you will Black Claw and Swarm. And even if we didn't hit those 2 crits, I believe the Chitterspine Skitterling would have finished Fantas off. If not, of course, and if your Chitterspine Skitterling dies, as I said before, if they die, just bring in your Spawn of Ganathus and use Thunderbolt and Swallow You Whole, although I imagine the Thunderbolt will be more than enough to finish them off. Spawn of Ganathus does have an alternate if you don't have that one, which is the skittering eel. So you can also bring in the skittering eel for slot 3 instead of the spawn of Ganathus. For our final team of the night, we have the Tinytron and either of the microbots, XD or 8D. I did go back after my general strategy with Bakhushek and check, and the 8D is also viable, so either one of the microbots will be fine. And then of course, if you don't have the microbots, you can probably use, where is he? You can probably use the Tranquil Mechanical Yeti with Supercharge and Call Lightning, and then if you survive after that, you can just Metal Fist to finish Fantas off, or if the Yeti doesn't survive, then your slot 3 should be more than enough to finish the fight. I do not need a slot 3 for my team, so if you have these 2 pets or the other microbot, then you should be fine with any mechanical level 25 in slot number 3. But let's go ahead and get started. As you can see here, again, we have the shields that do damage as they do damage to us. So you'll do Fire Shield, Lightning Shield, and then you probably don't need the Arcane Blast, but it's there just in case. As you can see, you're probably not going to use it. And once Fantas comes in, you will swap to your slot 2 pet, so either the microbots or the Tranquil Mechanical Yeti. You're gonna Supercharge and either Ion Cannon or Call Lightning. And then if you have the Tranquil Mechanical Yeti, I haven't tested it. You might not even need to Metal Fist after that. But if Call Lightning doesn't finish them off, Metal Fist, clean up with your slot 3 pet as needed. But those are all the family fights for Bakhushek. It wasn't too terribly difficult. As you saw, a lot of my, well, not a lot, but a few of my strategies just have, you can have whatever pet you want in slot 3, and if your second pet doesn't make it, that'll be more than enough to finish Fantas off. Clearly, my strategies are not the end-all be-all to these fights, but I do select these pets and these particular ones for stability. So when I'm looking at strategy creation, my first priority is the stability of the strat, which is why for especially family fights, you'll kind of see some off-the-wall pets sometimes that maybe might not be in the general users collection, so to speak, but my first priority on these is stability. Now, some of these fights for this particular trainer, it's overkill, right? You're probably going to be fine coming in and just using some general pets that you see all the time, and you'll be totally fine. But I create these specifically with stability in mind, then speed. And I do generally try to test some of the more available pets, which is why the flyer one, I had just any moth with Call Lightning, and I tried to make sure that with like the Dragonkin, that any breed of Nether Fairy Dragon was usable, and things like that. So I do try to make sure that other pets are at least feasible if you don't have access to those particular ones. But certain fights, kind of like the critter battle, that one's going to be very particular because we have 2 pets here that do a lot of beast damage. But that's about my explanation on why for some of these fights you're gonna see some funky pets, maybe kind of like the archetype of Vigilance. However, that is going to be it for me tonight. If you have any questions about any of these fights, or if there is any other pet-related content you'd like to see me do a video of, go ahead and drop those suggestions in the comments below. I hope you all have a fantastic rest of your day or night, depending on where you are in the world, and until next time everyone, happy battling!